Hello, welcome to a mid-year check-in. Can you quite believe we are beyond halfway in the year? I really can't, and I feel like I've already had this discussion with you in a TBR video. Quite possibly. But it is time to do a bit of a mid-year check-in. It is typically at this time of year that I would do the mid-year freak-out tag. However, I have decided to kind of stay in that area, but not quite follow that tag. So just more of a mid-year check-in and some random questions. I have asked my Patreons for some random questions to check in mid-year, see how my reading's going, anything that they would want me to answer as a mid-year question. And also I thought we could just generally chat about how the year has gone reading-wise. So that is what we are in store for here today. But before I do all of that, I would like to say a big thank you to the sponsor of this video, Skillshare. Now, I have been using Skillshare for, well, the first half of this year. I have been using Skillshare a fair bit. I've been using it for my own productivity purposes, as well as diving into UX and UI for my professional life as well. And I've actually got through, I think I've done like a class a month on Skillshare so far this year, so it'd be really cool to keep up with that into the second half of the year. There are still a fair number of UX classes in my saved classes area on the platform, including this one by Becca Dana, which is called Intro to UX, Apply the UX Design Process. Becca is a UX designer for Google, so you know that she's got some good tips in there and she's going to have some really useful content that I can take away from that class, so I'm really looking forward to doing that one. You've probably heard of Skillshare before. I've definitely mentioned it before. Skillshare is an online learning platform for creatives by creatives, with thousands of classes led by industry experts across a range of topics from photography, illustration, design, productivity. They've also actually released 3 new class topics in their recent update as well for the summer, which include AI and innovation, creative careers, and creative inspiration, which is definitely a topic that I see myself tiptoeing into in the future. So if you've wanted to invest some time in yourself and learn a new skill, Skillshare offers you the opportunity to explore your creativity as you unlock new skills and find new passions. But if you're not sure where to start, Skillshare also have learning paths, and learning paths is something that I have used. It's a curated list of classes for a topic that takes you from absolute beginner to having a competency in that skill in a list of classes for you to take in that particular order. It's been really useful for me. I've done it with UX, I've done it with Procreate, and I've done it with Notion as well. So if you are thinking about trying out Skillshare for yourself, I am of course happy to let you know that the first 500 people to click on my link down in the description will get a free 1-month trial of Skillshare. So you could get started with learning a new skill and finding a new passion today. Beyond my learning though, what else have I been up to in the first half of this year? Well, you will be happy to know, reading. Reading is what I've been up to. Well, sometimes. Some months definitely better than others. But my reading total so far this year is 60 books. I have read 60 books in the first half of this year, so I am ahead of schedule for my Goodreads goal to hit 100 for the year, so that is going very well. I don't know what my page count total is, bear with me. 20,600. I just checked my Cor Power spreadsheet. 20,634 pages is my page total for the year so far. I don't know if that's high or low, because I don't actually know what to compare that to. But 60 books, 20,000 pages-ish. And in terms of my 5-star reads, I did a bit of a check-in of my 5-star reads so far. I think since doing that, I've had 3 more. One of them was a reread, so 2 new 5-star reads since that video, which I will link somewhere else. So my 5-star reads has been pretty good. I have only had 2 2-star reads so far this year, and nothing below that. So not too bad. Although, to be fair, anything that would end up being below that, I would just DNF anyway, and I have had a few DNFs. So we'll see how that pans out at the end of the year when I do the full rundown. But questions. Question-wise. I have asked my patrons, as I say, for some questions. Let's see what they say. The idea here is that I'm going to give a different answer for everything, I hope. That's the plan. Hattie has asked, What new to you author have you read this year that could become a favourite? Ooh, a new to me author that could become a favourite. Ooh, that's hard because I don't want to preemptively put my eggs in the basket of, where is it? There it is. The basket of Brian Staveley. Do I want to put my eggs in the Brian Staveley basket? I think I do, because I think it could. So I recently read The Emperor's Blades by Brian Staveley, and it got 5 stars from me. I loved it. Definitely should have read that book sooner because it's been on my priority list for 2 years, so I should have got to that one sooner. But I have now read it, and I gave it 5 stars, and I loved it. And I think the rest of that series could be incredible, and I know that he's got further works, I think, in that world, maybe. So I do think that Brian Staveley could be a possible favourite. Gonna go with that one. Franzi has asked, what book made you laugh out loud? Ooh, what book made me laugh out loud? I think I would have to go with How to Become the Dark Lord and Die Trying. Again, a very recent read, but the humour in that was brilliant. I very much enjoyed the humour in that. Another 5-star read, another recent read, but the humour. So it follows Davy, who is stuck in a time loop, and every time her time loop restarts, she is the saviour of the people and she has to defeat the Dark Lord. But the Dark Lord keeps winning. So one cycle she decides to forget that. She's gonna become the Dark Lord, because if the Dark Lord always wins, she wants to be the Dark Lord. It's really funny. There is some, like, dark humour, because she can die and she knows it will be okay and she'll just start again. So there is some dark humour surrounding self-death, but it did make me laugh out loud. And the footnotes and just the general narration from Davy's point of view, chef's kiss. Absolutely brilliant. I loved it. Emma has asked, what book have you read this year that you most want to reread in future? I think that has to go to The Will of the Many by James Arlington. I'm definitely going to reread The Will of the Many. So The Will of the Many is the first book of the Hierarchy, I think the series is going to be called. I read it very early this year. It was first place for my favourite book of the year for a while. And I know I wanted to reread that as soon as I had finished it, but that was a little bit soon, so it will have to wait until closer to the release for book 2 in the Hierarchy, but I'm definitely going to reread that before I read book 2. The ending absolutely blew my mind, and I know that on reread, I'm gonna pick up on things that I didn't pick up on the first time, and I think I want to reread others of James Arlington as well. Like, I definitely want to reread the Lycanius trilogy, and I think James Arlington just has a way with creating these complex stories with these complex timelines, and like, you just know on reread you would pick out so many details because he does. Oh, the foreshadowing that man sprinkles in is gorgeous. So I'm definitely going to reread The Will of the Many. Oh, I love that book. If you haven't read that book, read that book. CJ has asked, what book have you read this year that you knew would go on the Unhaul pile? I don't think I've picked up any book this year with intention of knowing it's going to end up on the Unhaul pile, but I have read some books this year that have ended up on the Unhaul pile, or at least tried some books this year that have ended up on the Unhaul pile. The Crimson Moth is one of them. I've recently DNF'd The Crimson Moth. I had hoped that maybe I could get into that. Too fantasy romance for me, not my cup of tea, so that's ended up on the Unhaul pile. And I suppose maybe I was a bit sceptical going into that it wasn't going to be my cup of tea, and I was reading it to see if I should unhaul it or not. So I think that fulfills that question. Possibly. Lindsay has asked, what new to you author's book do you still need to get to this year? I have to go with The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu for this. It is another one that's been on my priority list for 2 years. I didn't get to it last year. I haven't read anything from Ken Liu. I am desperate to read The Grace of Kings. It's on my priority list for this year. And fun fact, of my top 10 priority list, there are only 4 left. I did check that. So I have 4 left to read in the second half of this year, and I do think that's achievable. Fingers crossed. And Ken Liu and the Dandelion Dynasty, that's what it's called, has got to be one of them. I don't think I'll get through the whole Dandelion Dynasty series, but I must read the first one. and that will be my first Ken Liu book, so that answers that. Emma's asked another good one, which is what upcoming release are you most looking forward to? And for me, that has to be Jen Lyon's Sky on Fire. It does come out in July. I don't know off the top of my head the date, but it's like soon. At the point of filming this, it is soon, and I am so keen for more Jen Lyons. Jen Lyons is the author of the Chorus of Dragons series, which is one of my favourite series ever. I love that series so much. I did a reread of it towards the end of last year. Mwah, love it, gorgeous. And I am so excited to have more Jen Lyons and more dragons. I actually don't know what Sky on Fire is about. I think there's a heist, and judging from the massive dragon on the cover, I'm pretty sure there are dragons. But other than that, I don't know what the book is about, and I would like to keep it that way so I can go into it and just have my mind blown from the very beginning. I have such high expectations for that book because it's Jen Lyons, and I've loved her whole library so far. So I can't wait to get my mitts on that, and hopefully it will be very, very soon. Alex has asked, what book made you cry, or at least get close? There are two books that come to mind for books that have made me cry this year. Both of them came as a surprise. One of them was very early in the year, and it was Doomsday with My Dog, Volume 1. This is a manga. I didn't particularly enjoy this manga. It confused me, it wasn't fully chronological, like it was a bit all over the place, but it's about a Shiba Inu. I have a Shiba Inu, and it's apocalyptic, and I don't want to spoil it, but a book about a dog made me cry. You can put the pieces together. I sobbed. I'm pretty sure I was on Patreon sprints at the time, and I sobbed, and it took me by surprise. And then more recently, The Last Gifts of the Universe by Riley August, which comes out in September, I think. I read an arc of this. Again, I was on Patreon sprints, so my patrons always get to see me cry. It took me by surprise again as well. This one is about a cat in space. Well, it's not just about a cat in space, it's about siblings in space finding relics of dead worlds to try and work out this threat that is in the universe that is killing all of the worlds off in order to maybe find some information that will help them protect their home world. But they also have a cat with them called Pumpkin. And it got very deep. I wasn't expecting it to be quite so deep and quite so like grief focused, but oh boy did that make me cry. It did. So 2 for 1 answer there. You get both of them. Emily has asked me, what is a book you think you will be talking about for years? And I should have saved The Will of the Many for this, but I didn't. So I'm going to go with the next best thing and go for Play of Shadows by Sebastian de Castell, which has trumped Night's Shadow as my favourite book. I adored Play of Shadows, and I think it's going to take a while for something to top that as my favourite book of all time ever. Therefore, I should logically be talking about it for years to come, because it's going to remain my favourite book for years to come. Unless the next book in the Court of Shadows series does it, in which case I might only be talking about it for a year. But I'm gonna go with that one, because new favourite book ever. New series from the world of the Greatcoats, Sebastian de Castell, my favourite author ever. I'm so excited to have more of that world, more of everything that's going on there, and a new favourite. So yeah, that one. Kathleen has asked, a book you wish you had read sooner. So many. It could be so many. I could have gone with The Emperor's Blades for this one because it's been on my priority list for so long and I should have read that sooner. Crucible of Chaos I should have also read sooner, actually, considering I had an arc of that and I still waited so long to read Crucible of Chaos. Could have gone with that one. But I'm actually going to go with one that I have very recently read, which is Witch Sign by Den Patrick. This book came out in 2018 and it's been on my shelf since 2018. I got it when it was fresh and new. It's been one of those series that sat on my shelf for so long that people have said, like, what a TBR vet, like that definitely needs to be a priority. You've had that whole series forever and you've never even read it. It's a bit of a joke how long I've had that one. I have now read the first book in that, and I definitely think if I had read it when it was new in 2018, I would have appreciated it more. Since 2018 to now, my reading tastes have changed and evolved, and I think if I had read it at the time that I purchased it, I definitely would have appreciated it more and enjoyed it more. I won't go too much more into detail there because it will be in the next vlog that I post. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that one. Another one from Emily is the best fantastical creature you've read so far this year. I don't know the answer to this. I don't know what the best fantastical creature I've read so far this year is. This one requires a little bit more thought. There is potential for it to be the dragons in Ragnar Crimson, because I haven't mentioned Ragnar Crimson yet in this video, and that definitely deserves a mention. I don't know if dragons is too basic of an answer, but like the higher dragons in Ragnar Crimson are not quite dragons as you know them, so I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna go with the higher dragons in Ragnar Crimson. They are awful, but brilliant to read about, and there is one in particular that is a very, very good character. Like, you don't know if you love them or you hate them, but they are a very good character as far as the dragons in Ragnar Crimson go. So I'm gonna go with them. I love Ragnar Crimson so much. So very much. Can't believe I had actually got through this video without mentioning Ragnar Crimson. Brilliant. Which brings us on to another one from Kath, the best sequel of this year. What is the best sequel I have read this year? I should have saved Play of Shadows for that, because it's kind of a sequel to Crucible of Chaos. Drats. I didn't save it though, so can't say that. Have I not read many sequels this year? That could be the case here. I need to check my Cor Power Spreadsheet. Okay. Spreadsheet consulted. Outside of manga, most of which being Ragnar Crimson or Spy Family, 2 sequels stand out to me, and that is going to be either The Art of Destiny. Finn, please don't eat the tripod. You were wobbling, sorry. That is either going to be The Art of Destiny by Wesley Chu or Fragile Threads of Power by Victoria Schwab. Which of those I preferred would be Fragile Threads of Power by Victoria Schwab. However, do you consider that a sequel, as it's the first book in a new trilogy, but it does take place after the Darker Shade of Magic trilogy, so it is still a sequel, but it's book 1 in a new trilogy. I'm gonna say that counts, because you do have to read in an order, so that does make it the 4th book. Let's go with that. I wanted to love that book so much, and I did love that book so much. It ended up having a 5-star reaction, a 5-star rating. It was beautiful. I loved it. I loved the characters. I loved how much we saw of the characters that we already knew and loved. I have a whole vlog on that book, so I won't go into too much detail here, but that's my favourite sequel. And then also, I just wanted to do some, like, general questions. So, best book of the year, Play of Shadows by Sebastian de Castell. Worst book of the year, as I say, I've only given 2 stars. Ooh, I've already mentioned Doomsday with My Dog, as I didn't enjoy, and it made me cry. So that one did get 2 stars, but it did get a big reaction out of me. My least favourite book of the year that I have finished and not DNF'd would be Sunbringer. Shocker. Yeah, Sunbringer, sequel to Godkiller. I didn't enjoy that one too much. I had high hopes for that series. I really expected to love it. I thought Godkiller wasn't great, but had potential to have a fantastic sequel, and Sunbringer well and truly let me down. It felt very repetitive. I wasn't interested. I think some of the best parts that we could have had, we didn't have, and the ending to Sunbringer felt like the ending to Godkiller. Again, it feels like it's built us up to have a fantastic sequel, so a fantastic 3rd book, but that's how Godkiller ended, so I don't know how I feel about continuing that series. So yeah, Sunbringer would be my worst read of the year. Another couple of general questions would be like the biggest surprise and the biggest disappointment. I think Sunbringer probably goes in for biggest disappointment because I didn't love that. I don't think anything else has disappointed me quite that bad. I told you an enormous lie. I have had a 1-star read this year. I told you a huge lie. Biggest disappointment and worst of the year. Let's swap that around. So, biggest disappointment can go to Sunbringer. Worst of the year can go to Yu-Gi-Oh! Volume 1. I read that in the Jadeyraereads manga, where Gavin built me a TBR based on the letters in Jadeyraereads, and for why I read Yu-Gi-Oh! And hated it. It was awful, and I gave it 1 star. It was not what I expected it to be, which I think was a big part of the problem. And also I have learned that I don't like little like snippet stories in manga. I don't like it when it's like, here's a 5-minute interaction, and here's a different 5-minute interaction, and here's a different 5-minute interaction. Like, I don't like that sort of story. That is what Doomsday with My Dog was as well, and that is what Yu-Gi-Oh! Ended up being, and it was very repetitive, and I didn't like it. Sorry to the Yu-Gi-Oh! Fans, I have heard that it kind of changes and it gets better. I don't think I'm going to read any more of it, so save your time in persuading me, because I just don't think I ever will. But I have heard from a lot of people already that it does change and get better and so on. But yeah, Volume 1, I did not like that. Right, biggest surprise, let's find that. I think for biggest surprise, I'm gonna go for Someone You Can Build a Nest In by John Wiswell. I really didn't know what to expect from that book going into it. It was cozy fantasy, but also horror. Like, the difference in the UK and US covers make that book look like 2 entirely different genres. Now I've read it, I understand both, because it is both of those genres. It is cozy, whimsical, cute, and it is also gruesome, horrific, and violent mixed together. And it works, and I don't fully understand how it works, but it works. We follow a shape-shifting swamp monster called Shisheshin, and Shisheshin eats people. She eats bodies. She's a shapeshifter that consumes anything and everything. And she falls in love with a human woman and maybe wants to build a nest in her? It's cute, it's gross, it's wholesome, it's horrific. If you want a weird time, read that book. Definitely took me by surprise because I did not know what to expect, but I had a good time with it. Other general stat-based things that you might be interested to know, as I say, of my top 10 TBR, I have read 6 of them already. I have 4 left to read. Of my self-destruct TBR, that wasn't from January, so I'm not halfway through that. That was from May, I think? April, May, whenever I uploaded that. But of that, I have only read 1. But I am keeping on top of it. I've got my lists, I've got my Notion sheets. I think they're the only like list-based ones that I'm keeping on top of. Yeah, in general, on track for Goodreads goal, feeling pretty good. April was my best reading month for reading 30 books in 30 days. June was bad. Hopefully July will be better with all of the dragon books that I'm reading. But yeah, fingers crossed the rest of this year goes generally as well as the first half has, because I would be pretty happy with that. Hope the rest of your reading year goes super duper awesomely well as well. Thank you once again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. As I said, the link is down below for the first 500 people to get that free trial of Skillshare. If you would like to check that out, you are free to go and do so. Thank you for hanging out with me for a bit. I hope you have enjoyed, and I shall see you in whatever comes next. Bye!